Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to our Project Separation, Building Our Promised Land. And as we have been taught to do with all significant events, and this is definitely an event of significance, we'd like to open us up in prayer this evening, and Brother Cartier will lead us in prayer.
Attention prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds, the Beneficent, the Merciful, Master of this day of judgment in which we now live. You alone do we serve, and you alone do we ask for help. O Allah, guide me on the right path, the path of those upon whom you have bestowed your favors, not the path of those upon whom your wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray after they have heard thy teaching. Ameen.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum. And welcome again to Project Separation, Building Our Promised Land. We are so excited about tonight's program, and we know that you're going to gain so much from this. And we encourage you, if you have not seen them, to watch all the previous episodes on the Project Separation YouTube channel, as well as on www.projectseparation.com. So we don't want to waste any time. We want to really get into this. So we're going to do just a brief introduction of our panelists, and then we will share a little video highlighting some of their works, just a teeny tiny fraction. You know, we couldn't even encapsulate everything that these brothers are doing, but we want to give you a little taste of it, and then we'll get right into the discussion as led by our Brother Cartier, the other moderator for the Project Separation, Building Our Promised Land. So at this time, we want to first introduce you to our brother who has been on our program before. You may have seen him 2 episodes ago, but is Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad. He is an urban planner, and he's also the student minister, the Southwest Regional Student Minister for the Nation of Islam and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We also have joining us this evening, Brother Fahim Muhammad. He is the owner of Urban Design Build and an executive project manager. So we're going to learn so much more about him. We also have with us joining us this evening is Brother Kamal Muhammad. He is the founder of the Detroit Mecca Project. He is our former Nation of Islam secretary, as well as a son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I'm telling you, I can't barely contain myself with the amount of experience, power, wisdom, energy that we have sitting before us on this call tonight, and what they're going to share with us. So I don't even want to string out the introductions. And you can learn more about them. You can go to their websites and read through all their accomplishments, but we want to get right into this. So we'd first like to start this evening by showing you 2 videos. The first video kind of highlights I'm sorry, I'm stumbling over my words this evening. I guess I'm really excited about who's on this evening, but we're going to show a small video on the making Detroit our Mecca, which this doesn't come out of a vacuum. This comes from words from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, uttered at a Savior's Day. And he told us that we should make Detroit our Mecca, and he directed us to buy up properties. And we have brothers who did exactly that, who have met. They have had programs. We have people who have purchased properties, and we're going to get into that. So that's what the first video will be. The second one will highlight the work of our brother, the design builder, Brother Fahim Muhammad. He is, not only has he managed or been the project manager of multi-million-dollar projects, he's also the designer, and we've probably all seen it, Muhammad Mosque number 45, that beautiful edifice that he worked on under student minister Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad. So we're going to showcase that too. So we're going to go right into our videos and get right into tonight's program.
at your neighbor to your left and to your right. So that winter, though it was a bad winter, they didn't have to shovel. I did it. And they just watched, never said a word. But that following spring and summer, all I had to do was ask, and they loaned me whatever tools I needed. I didn't have it yet. They won't let me buy a lawnmower. They bring the lawnmower in, you gotta go cut your grass, because they know I'm busy at the monster lot.
Right.
I'll come home and the lawnmower sitting in the driveway with a tank of gas.
Beautiful. And now we'll see our second one highlighting the work of our brother Fahim. It was just a moment, a little background technical.
Hey, praise be to Allah. I think that was the conclusion of the video. So like Sister Donna, well, first of all, family, let me give you the greetings. Assalamu alaikum. I pray Allah is blessing everyone with the best of health and spirit this evening. I'm just as excited as Sister Donnie is to get right into the discussion. So we're going to start off with, excuse me, we're going to start off with Brother Kamal. I want to ask you, Brother Kamal, what inspired you to initiate the Detroit Mecca project, and what problems did you see starting off in that process, and what problems do you hope to solve with the project?
Yes, sir. First, as a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I'd like to give praise to Allah. In the name of Allah, beneficent, merciful, bear witness. None deserves to be worshipped besides Allah, and that Muhammad is his messenger. I thank Allah for intervening in our affairs in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, the great Mahdi, to us here in North America and throughout the world. And I thank him for raising the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, our Messiah in Christ. I thank them both for leaving to us a guide, a great and wonderful guide in the person of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I greet you all in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
Now, I'm sorry, my brother, can you repeat the question?
Yes, sir. Excuse me. I just wanted to ask you, starting off, what inspired you to initiate the Detroit Mecca project, and what were some of the problems that led up to that inspiration that you saw, and what do you hope to solve with the project?
Yes, sir. Well, I'm glad I gave my my initial opening there, because what inspired me is, of course, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. I mean, I was doing my own thing in the world. You know, I mean, I was being fairly successful as a stockbroker, and we did investment banking. And the minister contacted me at a certain point to ask me to be the national secretary, which I accepted. And during this time, he wanted me to, literally told me, I'd like you to try, brother, to at some point make it so that the believers can benefit as the nation grows. He said, sort of like stocks maybe, but they should benefit somehow. So I kept that as an assignment. And all the time I was a national secretary, and I've done things like tried to make companies for us, like the nation's best water, which some people may remember. Nation One Communications, some people may remember. Finally, after I was relieved from my post and turned it over to our great brother, Saad Muhammad, I was able to be free to do, again, what the minister asked me to do, which is be sort of like an investment advisor for the Nation of Islam. And the first thing I thought about after they call it the Great Recession, but it was like a depression in 2008. Detroit suffered from the real estate crash that everyone in the nation did. They also suffered from the job loss that everyone did, and they suffered from the major industries that were in Detroit, which was the automobile industry. And all of them were under, and the banking industry. And so all of them were under extreme pressure. Detroit actually became bankrupt as a city, and the real estate at that point was literally dirt cheap. I mean, you could buy a beautiful 6-bedroom home with, it needed some work. I mean, I actually did this. I bought one for $5,000. And I saw Detroit and I said, well, maybe this is some way we can use this to fulfill the goals that the minister asked me to do, to somehow let the believers take advantage of this situation. Now, I've always been a person that's kind of unafraid to try new business things. So I rushed out with some money that I had that I sold. I recently sold a home of mine. I rushed out with this money and went to Detroit, drove there, following the path of my father from Chicago to Detroit. And the minister had told me, and all of us who were around at the time, we've heard him say it thousands of times, that Detroit is our Mecca. And that the history of Prophet Muhammad was being fulfilled through the history of our leader, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because he was forced out of Detroit and came to Chicago. And he went back and forth through the two cities over time. And the distance in the cities are about the same as the distance between Mecca and Medina. So all this is in my head as I'm looking at investing in Detroit. I started by buying 3 properties just to figure out, is this real? Is this something that I can use to help our people? And it took me a while. I mean, there was a lot of difficulties that I had to overcome. I brought an idea to the executive council. Sister Ava, Minister Ava was a part of that and a great help. She's been a great help from the beginning with me. I thank Allah for her as a sister in the nation. She's always been a force throughout the nation as one of our first. No, she may be the only sister minister, but I know she was one of our first, and definitely our first and only sister regional minister. So she helped me an awful lot in this process. Some of the difficulties I faced was securing the homes, because when you have a situation like we have in Detroit and in many of our cities, because I'd like to use this as a blueprint for other cities, because all of our urban cities are the same way. We have blighted Black neighborhoods. We have situations where they get so blighted and so lost that white people eventually come in and buy up our neighborhoods, build what we call the Mac mansions in those neighborhoods, and turn the neighborhood completely around as we go and get displaced somewhere else. Well, I wanted to disrupt that paradigm and change it, to something that benefited us as a people. But of course, the first thing was security. And I thank Allah for Mosque number 1 and the believers there that helped me in that area, securing the homes so that, the problems of having vandalism and things like that, I worked out, and it's still working out though. I mean, it's still difficult, but thank God for our believers there that are helping me with that. I also had to have a crew of people to rehab the homes. And then I had to figure out a way to offer them to our people at a price that they could afford, because even though I could buy these homes for $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, they had to be rehabbed, and it might take $10,000, $15,000 to rehab the home. So where was the average Black person going to get this money? Especially during the time in 2008 when everyone was out of a job and people were really suffering. So I came up with some plans at that time to offer the homes. Basically, I gave them basically a loan, a personal loan from my company. So we did it so that you could do a down payment on the house and pay me over time. That was able to go for a few years, but as the housing prices increased in value, we had to change that plan. And I'm thinking of new ways now to offer these properties in a way so that our believers can take advantage of it and we can make these communities ours. So, I mean, that's what we're doing. I mean, I've had a lot of help along the way. I told the minister that I was not able to do this. I said, I mean, this is a big project, brother minister. I don't think I can do this. And he said, brother, you came up with the idea. He said, so Allah will make a way for you. He'll send people to help you.
That's right.
And as time goes on, I got help from some of the greatest people around. I mean, one of them is here, brother, student minister, Dr. Halim Muhammad, just popped into my head and said he was going to help me. I had the investors come to help me. So we're planning big things now, and we're getting help even now in the form of more investors to try to build whole communities in Detroit. The reason I like Detroit, and I'll end it here, is that we already I'm tying it in with the separation. We're already separated in Detroit. We have an entire major city in the United States that's 85% Black now. We're already separated. We just have to make that city the example and the heaven for our people that we need to present. We should be able to present a diamond as a city that's Black owned and say, this is our example. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do.
Praise be to Allah. Praise be to Allah. You know what, brother? You answered my second question.
I'm sorry.
The question I was going to ask you. No, praise be to Allah. That's good. It expands it, allows us time to expand the dialogue. And I like that you highlighted the minister directing us towards towards Detroit as our Mecca. And I like the project that you initiated there with gaining adequate housing for our people, which is something that since we've been in America, we still haven't been able to get on a collective manner, safe, decent housing to secure that for ourselves. So as Sister Ava always says, when it comes to separation, the first thing that we got to start doing is living in proximity with one another. And the project, you know, of securing safe and decent housing, attracting men and women of like mind to just live in the vicinity of one another is the first preliminary step.
And I wanted to add this, that I'm glad that you brought up the fact, Brother Kamal, that we're already separated. We're living separate wherever we are. It's a matter of gaining control. That's those colonies that the minister talked about. And that helps to remove that mindset that we have of, oh, we can't do it, or why should we separate, or it's crazy for us to live alone. You know, we don't do the same things together. We don't get our hair done at the same place. We don't go to the same barbershops. We usually don't go to church together, all of that. We live separate instances. We're just not in control. So I thank you for lifting that up.
Yes, ma'am.
As well.
Yes, ma'am. You know, what I found in Detroit is that we had communities that used to be great, thriving communities. I'm talking about way back in even the 40s and the 50s, and maybe even earlier, because that was a city that Ford set up for his factory. And at that time, he imported. I won't say imported, but he made it welcoming for Black people to come from the South up to Detroit and work in his factories. They even got comparable pay, which was very unusual at that time to the white people who were working at that time. So Black people developed a very nice community of their own back there in the 40s and 50s. And then over time, they began being marginalized again. So there's a history of Black excellence in Detroit that we need to tap back in, as well as the fact that, as we know, Master Farad came to Detroit. And there's a reason he came there, you know, so we need to tap into that and see if we can, I guess, reach back and pull this greatness forward and remake this city, rebuild this wasted city into the greatness that it really should be. And I thank Allah for Student Minister Aleem, because he came up with a nice idea of combining education with job creation and a whole package of that going in with rebuilding community and the homes. Because you can't just have homes without changing the mindset and the lives of the people.
That's right.
You know, so that's what the Detroit Mecca Project is trying to do.
Praise be to Allah. Did you have another question for him, Sister Donna?
Oh, no, sir. I just wanted to make that comment before we can move on. We can continue.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to segue now into Brother Fahim, since we're talking about as we secure these properties, making them decent places or beautiful places, making the communities and the residential properties, the commercial properties look to the standard of a Muslim or to the standard of Black excellence. I think that was that I spoke to you, Brother Kamal, and you said, man, we got to change it to where our communities become synonymous with Black excellence and not just looking like you can, oh man, it looks bogus. I know the Blacks live here. We want to be, man, this looks nice. So we know the Blacks live here. So we're going to segue to Brother Fahim for the next question. What are some of the principles in the planning process that should be considered before taking on a development project like this? What are some of the fundamental planning principles that should be considered in the planning phase?
Praise be to Allah. Thank you for having me on. I certainly appreciate the opportunity. But in just jumping into your question, I think the key is depending on what type of project you're rolling into. If it's a greenfield development, you definitely need to actually have an urban planner. And an urban planner will give you, I guess, a birdshot view of the programming process of what areas, what major amenities are necessarily needed for different parts of the community. You can have parks, you can have retail, you can have schools. You can actually have the housing, multifamily and single family housing. But that urban planner is going to give you a broader perspective in terms of what is needed, how to place it, and how are you going to commute in and out of that area with that program being established. And that's typically for like a greenfield development. So if you're rolling into an area, somebody came up to you and said, hey, you know, I have at least 20 acres that I'd like to develop. And it's a green, rural, undeveloped area. Those are some major components. Those are some major entities or professionals that you want to bring to the table to help you paint that picture. And then once that picture is actually painted, you know, you have the layout, you have the larger plan, you know the timeline in which that development is actually going to span out, then you narrow down into the types, the standards, the deed restrictions associated to that community. You talked about the beautification, you know, how does the facade of the home look? You know, is it a starter home? Is it a medium home? Is it a high-end home? And how do you place those in and around the community? Do you do a multi-family development on the outskirts of the community or the inside of the community?
Hmm.
That paints the picture in terms of how people will flow through that community and how you will flow directly into the commerce of that community as well. So there are various perspectives in terms of, typically when I talk to a client, I'll ask them, where are they within the planning process of the project? Is it a green project or is it a pre-established project? Do you have utilities? I had a lot of clients will actually come to the table and say, hey, I have this great property. I'm sitting on 20 acres and it's a beautiful location. I said, well, where are your utilities at? Do you have water? Do you have gas? Do you have electrical? And you really have to paint the picture to them in terms of not just aesthetically, but fundamentally, what are the main infrastructure items that are needed to help to build these communities? We can roll in and do a greenfield development, it'd be great, but paying the costs to actually have the streets, the electrical, the sewer, the plumbing ran through that community is a completely different cost altogether. So key consultants that I would actually bring to the table upon initiation of a deal would definitely be an urban planner, such as Brother Halim, a civil engineer to help lay out the horizontal design development of the roads, the streets, and also dividing the different parcels up, in addition to bringing your design professionals in to help you establish the aesthetics of how that community is actually going to look and how it should play out, throughout the entire process.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I just wanted to highlight, you got Brother Kamal. He can tell you how to get it from it just being trees and grass and dirt to turning it into, and I don't know if anybody remembers, I'm sure you all do remember, it was the very first broadcast of the series. We had the sisters from Georgia, who went down right outside Toomsboro and I think it's Wilkinson County, Georgia, and purchased raw land. Started with 90 acres, and I think they're now over, last time I spoke to her, they're like over 540 or 500, they're over 500 acres of land now, raw land, that they've been on doing just what Brother Fahim just mentioned. So the possibilities here are really endless. If you wanted to start with something that's already developed, where we already are, and just beautify it, make it better, or if you wanted to start from complete scratch and really put your creative geniuses going, we could do that, because the process of separation allows us to start that creative process and express ourselves the way we want to be expressed. Right. How we want our communities to look. What's important? What are some of the fundamental the word escapes me. How do we express ourselves culturally within our community? Just like you said, Brother Fahim, how the homes look, how the streets look, So I want us to see that we have with us at this table right here, you got 50% of what you just mentioned, yourself and an urban planner that can get that done. That's right here in our ranks to be able to do that. So you mentioned something on the phone when we spoke, Brother Fahim, and I wanted to ask this question of you in connection with that. You talked about the importance of working with like-minded individuals, right? And a collective component of pulling your resources and coming together to take on projects like this. Can you kind of speak to that, and also speak to the connection where you talked about establishing our own commerce and business districts as we try to make these communities, produce these communities like this? How can we, in some of those communities, reactivate business districts and commerce that's already there, or in some cases, just completely start up new ones? You can just speak to that.
Right. So I think it's imperative when you're speaking, I guess in some sense hypothetical, but it's not hypothetical. Is you have brothers actually rolling out what we're discussing. So if you're doing something within an inner city, it's pivotal to actually target a specific area, and then proceed to actually evaluate the best methods and means of acquiring as much of the land in that specific territory as you can. That might be actually defining a main thoroughfare where you can actually have most of your commerce in and around that area. That might be getting in an area to where there's multifamily, single family development, raw land, and a host of other different types of different products, such as your schools, such as your mosque, in and around that territory. And if you pull a group of brothers together who have like-minded experiences and backgrounds, but complementing each other. I mean, it's one thing to actually sit back and say, I have a great idea to be able to do a major development project. But my first question is going to be, number one, where is it going to be? What is your concept in terms of what you're trying to develop? Please paint the picture for me. But how are we going to finance this? And within that perspective, I want to be able to stay in my lane, and I want the other individuals who have the skills and capability of bringing in the financial resources that we need to be able to utilize their talents and skills at networking with the different financial institutions, crowdfunding, whatever that might be, to be able to pull that capital in and provide that to the group or entity so that we can define specifically what types of products that we can put out. If it's single family, if we have, say, 5 or 6 lots, or we actually have pre-existing homes that are dilapidated that need work on, define specifically what are the deficiencies associated to those specific homes, then solicit those specific properties to said individuals who are looking to purchase them. And if we have vacant land, provide specifically what type of home could be built on that and what projected cost it will potentially be to purchase that. And if I have individuals who have a financial background, I want to bring them in, and they're going to provide whatever method or means of financing to those specific individuals who are interested in purchasing, at least guide them towards that specific area of financing so that the properties could potentially be purchased. I want to be able to design, I want to be able to build in that said specific area, but I just want to stay in my lane and make sure that we have all the other skilled professionals there and capable of doing their job. Not to mention the fact that if whatever community you have to have commerce. So we have shops, you have stores, you have schools. It's a multitude of different professionals that need to come in to help to facilitate in making a community a better place. So it's not just going to be residential, or it wouldn't just be residential. It would be residential, it will be commercial, in some cases industrial, because you're going to need mechanic shops. You're going to need registration. You might want to get your car registered. So you're going to need all of these components to help facilitate the needs of a said community. So it's imperative that, when developing a said community, that you bring a host of individuals in to help establish that. But if you do it within a collective area and you have a specific population, then the political side of it actually comes in. Now you have voting power, you have voting rights. You can determine what takes place in your schools. You can determine what takes place in your blocks. I mean, you can go any place across the United States of America, and there's an Asian community that have their own shops, their own housing, their own shops, their own housing, their own schools, their own hotels. And that's in every major city across the United States. They have those things. I think someone more recently said, how do you distinguish when you actually coming to a Black community? You know, and it's based on how we present ourselves, the standards that we actually set. Not all communities are the same. There have some great established communities, but in those great established communities, you have people who are on boards, who are people who are stakeholders within that community, and they make a firm determination that our deed restrictions will be in place. We will hold our political individuals responsible for not acting on our best interests in the long run. But I hope I'm getting to your question. But as it relates, you'll need a host of professionals, you know, both construction, financing, political, education, to actually bring ideas and concepts like that together.
Yes, sir. Praise be to Allah. In that, man, I heard, I hope the audience is listening for those ministries, for those 9 ministries that the
Correct.
Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that the Honorable Minister, or the Honorable Elijah Muhammad gave us through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, so that as we move into this process, we'll have exactly what we need when the time comes to pull for that intellectual resource to build. We thank you for that insight, Brother Fahim. We're going to go now to Dr. Halim, big brother Dr. Halim. My brother, he makes me nervous, family. Don't, because I know he's going to drop the bomb on us. We gave up so much. You on mute, Brother Halim. Can we, you unmuted? Can we unmute him?
I'm good.
Okay, praise be to Allah. I was going to ask you what can be done to attract some builders into the region for intentional development. And if you can just speak on some of the opportunities and benefits that come with taking on the task to intentionally develop the way that you see fit, you know, that serves your best interest. If you can just speak to that, and then whatever else because we got so much. I know you itching. It's a lot that was said. I know it's a lot you get to give up.
We only have an hour and a half, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful. I bear witness there's no God but Allah, who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. I thank him for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and for them both not leaving us alone, but leaving in our midst our brother, servant, and friend, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And to go right to your question, brother, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan told me long ago, brother, he said, brother, we have everything we need in the nation. Everything. And the nation, sometimes we make the mistake of thinking the nation is the mosque. No. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, do we have the qualified men and women for self-government? And he answers himself, yes. We don't have to have everything that the Caucasian has, but we've got everything that the Caucasian has. If we really look at it, you were just talking and listening to it. From Brother Kamal, coming from being a stockbroker and a commodities trader there in Chicago, to Brother Fahim, who has done projects all across the country, and I think in Canada also. But the point that I would like to go right to your question is, you know, how do you track these new builders or whatnot? It's return on investment. Now, many of us are motivated in certain kind of ways. Now, Master Fard Muhammad said that people are like fish, they swim in schools and there's always a lead fish. So you have to have the right kind of bait. So if you have return on investment, there's some of us, the return on investment is just our survivability. To get away from these folk who are vexing our spirits. The beautiful thing about traveling overseas, especially in the dominant Muslim world, like when I went to Turkey, was the call to prayer. Call to prayer, it just stopped. You go and pray. In the restaurant that we were in, had a prayer room, had a wudu station where you could wash and then you could go pray. Department store, the same thing. There was as you and I see 7-Elevens and stop and goes on every corner, there was a masala on every corner in some of these neighborhoods. So when you heard the call to prayer, it was just a part of your 5 things that you did. You gave Allah those 60 minutes out of a whole day. Then you went on and you did what you had to do. So for some of us, you know, the return on investment is spiritual. It's visionary. It is to have the ability to have an idea in your head and to see that thought can shape matter. As Brother Fahim, he wants to stay in his lane, which is design and building. It's a beautiful thing for he and I have these discussions that we have. And sometimes when we get together, people around us, their eyes start rolling up in their heads. Say, what these cats talking about? But we just go at it. But to give him a concept and then to see my brother go and get, he'll have an electronic pay of his iPad and start scratching on it. I said, yeah, that's what I'm talking about right there. So to have a vision in your head and then to take that vision from your head, to conceive it, believe it, and then achieve it. What greater thing is it to prove that you're God? That's what he did. He created himself out of triple darkness. So we're just going to follow his pattern. So, and it may be a financial return on investment. There's nothing wrong with that if it's a fair exchange, as Brother Kamal has done to make people, put people in a position where they can have assets that appreciate,
That's
and
right.
thereby they have equity. So you don't necessarily have to charge interest. What you do is you base it upon equity, and that if the person sells the place or you get your money based upon the escalating value of the property that you've invested in or that you've lent them the money for. It may be for safety and security. We need defensible space. We need to be together so that if a natural disaster takes place, the 911 system, when we went through Hurricane Harvey here in Houston and the freeze, the 911 system was inundated. So you had to depend on your neighbors during these natural disasters and these calamities that are going to strike America if we're reading and believing in fall of America. And so there are many things, social, political. And so when we look at that, then what is the vision? You know, the scripture says, you know, without a vision, the people perish.
That's right.
But what we've done here on Project Separation, and we thank Allah for Sister Ava and her driving force, particularly as it relates to the self-improvement study guide, which is the basis for community development. And we thank Allah for her and this driving force of separation. This is what she talked about. And she talked about other things, but those two things I will lay my hat and her headpiece on. Those two pieces right there. So what we have to do, brothers and sisters, is this for the Muslims. Go back to your student enrollment and your actual facts. This is what God has hardwired us. If you look at the student enrollment, if you study lesson number 1, lesson number 2, if you study the problem book and you study English lesson C1, you can draw out of it all of the sciences that you can find, from hydrology, from agriculture, from demographics. You name it, it's there in our supreme wisdom. So as I studied for my master's and my PhD in urban planning, all I did was I used the student enrollment as the basis of how you plan. You start with people. Who's the original man? Who's the colored man? You have to know your demographics. You have to know whether you're doing what is the total square area that you, Brother Fahim talked about 20 acres. You talked about the sisters and them, their families about 500 acres. Brother Ben and Brother Farrakhan Muhammad, Brother Ben X and others got assembled 250, working on 500, maybe 1,000 acres. Okay, so now you know how much is the land, how much is the water, how much is producing land, how much is useful land. You understand? And what do you use it for, right? Then you go into the fact of Brother Fahim talked about the timeline. So you got chronology. You have to have a chronology, a timeline, a sequence of things you have to put together. You know, so what is the birth record of the said nation of Islam? What's the birth record of said others in Islam? There's chronology in it. So there's sciences all in our Mr. Muhammad cracked the atom into 10 million parts. What are you talking about? You're talking about atomic weapons. You know, so in it, when you talk about Yaqub, you're talking about genetic engineering. There is science in it. Do not let anybody poo-poo us about our lessons. Our lessons open up the Holy Quran and make us look at things scientifically. So as an urban planner, brother, you have to think globally. You have to act locally, but you plan regionally. And what I mean by that, think globally. Right now, there's a war that is heating up in Europe. And Minister Farrakhan said it's the beginning of the war. But look how it's affecting our gas prices. So now we have to act locally. So how do we build a community where it's walkable, where we have alternatives of transportation? We don't necessarily have to have an automobile where we have to drive, so we're impacted by the rising gas prices. How do we have a community that's in transition to go from dependency on the dominant society to resilience and independence and sustainability in a local economy, as Brother Fahim pointed out? So how do we, work on our transportation system so that it's multimodal? How do we work on our energy so that we can use solar energy, we can use hydro, we can use wind, we can use thermal, we can use all of these other mediums of energy so that we can have an energy supply that is not necessarily tied to the grid. And if the grid goes down like it did in Texas, we're still able to heat our homes or cool our homes or cook or eat or use our utilities, right? Food, local food. Understand that the price of food is going to go up, especially if you're transporting it from farms all over the place. Now you got to bring that, and then the trucking costs because the diesel gas is going up because of all of that's going up. So your food costs are going to go up. But what if we grew locally? What if we grew locally and took and had for ourselves not only urban gardens, but we have agriculture, and in those agricultural communities that we build, which would be agrarian urbanism, which is to say to build a community around agrarian activity. But you don't do it so where you're trying to make the brother and sister that's on the farm feel like a slave to the urban area. You allow them to have an aspect of it, as Brother Fahim pointed out, in terms of industrial. It could be light industrial, where they have value added. They take the product, they put it into, in some cases, almost their near final form. They package it, they do it, then they ship it out. Therefore, they can mark up the price, they can make a living, because farming, basically, unless you have a big corporate conglomerate, really isn't as profitable as it is. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us to what? To grow what we needed for ourselves and then sell the surplus, right? So that requires, that's a big operation. And then again, our healthcare, as we see in the Brother Fahim's presentation, working on hospitals and healthcare, we got to have healthcare for ourselves, and waste management. So we go to those things that we have to have in order to be resilient. So again, going to the core of your question, brother, without a vision, the people perish, and a vision without the right people will perish. And a vision without a plan is a hallucination. So not only have to think about the Detroit Mecca project, but we have to think about the region that is Chicago, that is even Toronto, that all of these cities, if you look at them and the growth in the suburbs and the outer region of these, they're almost literally overlapping in terms of population growth. So we have to think about, the Great Lakes region. What are we going to do to the Great Lakes region? How do we connect the transportation between Chicago, Ohio, all these other states that are basically in that Great Lakes region? And then I'm down here in the Gulf Coast region, and we have what they call a region that's the Texas Triangle, which is San Antonio, Dallas, Austin, and Houston. It's a triangle of growth that's inside the state of Texas. Then you have the Gulf Coast, so let's say Houston going over to New Orleans. And so we have to look at all of these things because there's going to be a difference. So I say to us that as we plan, we have to understand the differences in the transect, if you will. So you're going to have natural land. If you're going to build, you're going to have to build in accordance with some place that may be natural. Then there's rural, right? Then there's suburban. And then there's a kind of a general urban area, right? Then you've got an urban center and an urban core. We got your big buildings and whatnot. Every one of them going to have different kind of streets, different kind of sidewalks, different kind of roads, different kinds of homes. Everything is going to be different according to where you're building. So we're not going to cookie cut. However, as the visionary, most honorable Elijah Muhammad, he gave us like an architectural pattern. See, This is from the accomplishments of the Muslims, right? It came out like in the 70s. But he gave us a pattern of a type of architecture that as Brother Fahim pointed out, when you go to Chinatown, you know you're in Chinatown. So when they come in our neighborhood, somebody should be whispering. They said, "Man, who's that?" They should be whispering, "That's the Muslims."
That's right.
Or that's the black people who at the core is the vision of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, where black people live in peace, whether they're Muslim or not. Remember, we want justice for all, whether they're in God or not. We just want our people to be civilized and to respect the collective rules that we put together, as Brother Fahim talked about, deed restrictions. You know, how your house, the color of your house, the kind of shingles you should have, you know, how you should maintain your lawn. All these things are part of the deed restrictions that we would have, bringing it down on a micro level. So in order to attract these kind of builders, Brother Cartier, and to others, there's got to be return on investment, but you have to know what it is that the person wants and then give them what they want. You know, like the OJ said, I'm sorry, I'm from the 70s, y'all. You got to give the people what they want.
Now y'all see why he get me excited? And that's beautiful, brother. That's beautiful, man. You when I speak to you, when I hear you, it really brings to the forefront the creative process that we've so long been not experiencing for ourselves because we haven't taken on this particular endeavor to build for ourselves. But in hearing you,
if I could, I would like to also give credit to one of the persons that Brother Kamal called to the vision, which is the sister Nina Shabazz. She's like a planner, and she's like my wing woman or whatever. If I get shot down, that means Nina wasn't flying. You know, like Red Tails, brother broke away, he got shot down because Nina is like that. She is an excellent planner. And if we have time, I would like to share my screen so you can see what Brother Kamal talked about in terms of Hamilton Avenue there in which is called Highland Park, which is a city within that Mr. Ford built because he didn't really want to be a part of Detroit. So he literally built a city himself called Highland Park, where his big executives lived and his workers lived. He had a separate school system and all of that. But when Detroit went down, so did Highland Park. Highland Park is almost 100% black, if you will. But we picked a corridor, we looked at it, and that was conceptually what we came up with to combine the kind of blue collar, the professional class, the blue collar, and also dealing with advanced technologies. So you got to have all three. You got to have the blue collar, the green collar jobs, which is about renewable energy and sustainability, and then you got to have the advanced technologies. Otherwise, we're going to get left behind on the plantation of information. That's why I'm happy to have 17-year-old Sister Joy on here running this Google box over here, because I don't know nothing about it.
That's right. That's right. I think Sister Donna did.
You know, Dr. Halim, you spoke right into my question before I could raise it, and I should have known that your response would be comprehensive enough to deal with it, because I wanted you and Brother Kamal and Brother Fahim to address establishing covenants. You mentioned about a masala being on every corner, just about in some areas, and our behavior. And we know we're living in the Wild Wild West right now. And so I wanted to ask, though, about, I know that in the beginning you can establish covenants, correct, when you're building a planned community, but in what ways, and this goes to all of the panelists, in what ways can we work to bring that into fruition what we had? And I asked that because the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan did tell us, go back and make your communities a safe and decent place to live. That is part of separation. We're not all necessarily going to have to leave where we are. If we're taking at least 8 states, well, we're living in some of those states, and we have to make those safe and decent. And we have the planned communities, but working with what we have, how could you go about maybe establishing covenants already, in addition to when do you introduce that in a planned community? And I'm glad you brought up Highland Park Corridor, because I want to encourage our viewers to go back and watch our previous programs, because we did do a presentation on Highland Park, and we can show some of that, because I wanted us to give an update on the Highland Park Corridor, or how that can be replicated, whether it has come to fruition or not, how it can be replicated.
Okay, well, as Brother Fahim brought up, if you're doing a greenfield development, usually what happens is the developer comes in and he writes up the deed restriction for that subdivision.
Are you saying greenfield? What is it, Brother Fahim?
Greenfield means you got 20, 50 acres and it's woods. So you're cutting down the trees and all that. It's a green field. There's nothing there.
Yes, it's primarily just raw land. Land that has not been built on, land that doesn't have a structure on, no utilities at all. And I think when you have people who are buying out in the country, you're dealing with raw land. It could have been agriculture at some point in time, but they call them greenfield developments. So typically that's the term used for unused land or non-used land.
So in Houston is quite unique. We have a city without zoning, and it's literally governed by deed restrictions. And if your deed restrictions expire, they're unenforced and unenforceable, then what happens is that you may have a community that literally had shotgun shacks or had ranch style homes. But if you and your homeowners association did not enforce your deed restriction, did not do what you needed to do, your due diligence to keep them up, they're unenforced. And then what happens is that a person in the city of Houston can come and buy a lot next to you where there was a shotgun shack. Now you got Mama Jones's house, Mr. Smith's house, and Mr. Ali's house. They're shotgun shacks. They pay a low tax rate because the value of them is not high. But then someone comes in and buys that lot where a shotgun house was, or two, and then goes down to the city planning department and asks for a variance. And they go before the planning department and they get this variance, and now they're building, as Brother Fahim described, a McMansion. Now, what does that do? That then begins to change the dynamic of the community. What is gentrification? Gentrification is neighborhood change that leads to displacement. Right. So now you can't keep up with your taxes. Now eventually you're pushed out. We want the Starbucks, we want the Chipotle, we want all of the amenities that you find in the suburban communities. But when these planners come in, Brother Fahim could tell you, staying in his lane though, but as an urban planner, I'm kind of general. So I'm gonna mess with all of them. You have somebody that'll do a market study, right? A drill down market study, and they'll draw a concentric circle around the site that they're planning to purchase. And they want to know the demographics. Again, I'll go back to your student enrollment. What kind of professionals? What's the age group? How much money, how much income do they have? Right. What's their educational level? All of that, so they can determine that if I make this investment, will I get my return on my investment? So they move out to where they follow the money or go where the money is. And last point I'll make on this is that public investment, when Brother Fahim talked on that politics, and I know a lot of us say, I don't deal with that politics, but understand, brothers and sisters, what the minister taught Mayor Marcus was that our politics is to guard our economics. And he got the phrase, politics without economics is symbol without substance. So, brothers and sisters, we have to understand that if we do not have the economics and we don't have the politics to protect it, if we're not watching over that, then people will always continue to take advantage of us. And so we got to know how to navigate both those spaces. I hope that answered the question. I don't know.
It did. It really did. Oh, you had something you wanted to say too, Brother Fahim. It looks like you had it.
And I think he communicated that well. So like in Houston, it's kind of like a developer's dream, because in a large way there's literally no zoning in the inner city. There's only zoning in areas in where there are deed restrictions, and deed restrictions are still in place. I myself live in an inner city of Houston, and the deed restrictions are they're past due. I mean, actually, in the deed restrictions where I live in, they say blacks cannot live in this specific area, you know. But the reality is, if you don't have that in place, then you have a developer who's going to come in. I have a lot here that might have a single family development on. I have an empty lot here. I got a dilapidated home here. Same thing in Chicago, same thing in Houston, same thing in Washington, D.C. They're going to come in and subdivide that specific piece of land, and they're going to maximize the potential of it and do a dense development that's going to give them a higher return. So if I do a single family product, it's going to be $300,000. If I do 3 townhomes on that project, on that lot, I can get $3,000 per individual lot that has been subdivided. So I can walk away with 9 million on one lot, or I can actually have $300,000 or $400,000 on another lot. Most developers who are startup developers, as well as in the city of Houston, they're going to pick the components where I can subdivide it and make it as dense as possible and get that $900,000 out of one specific lot. And that's where you have to get involved within your local politics and the individuals who own land in that specific area, so they can have provisions in place so where they can be limited lot sizes. So that means you can't subdivide that lot multiple times. You know, there's certain things that are actually in place to protect individuals who don't want to see their property taxes actually increase. But you have to be involved. But the key is we have to have ownership. Because we can have voting power, but if we don't have ownership in a said area in which we live, you know, you're kind of doomed to be subjugated to another community. You're controlled by the rental rates that are actually increasing, and you know, you're controlled by the products that are currently in that said area. So it's very vital that whatever area you live in, you try to have some type of stake and be a stakeholder in that said community.
I'm glad that you brought up about the importance of the ownership as well, because overcrowding leads to conflict. I don't care how beautiful it looks. At some point in time, when you start squeezing people into space, and we've seen that with the government housing projects, they didn't start out looking the way that they look. They turned into something else, but no matter how beautiful it is. I wanted to turn over to you, Brother Kamal, on the Detroit Mecca project, but did you have something
I wanted to add
say first?
I wanted to add to what Brother Fahim and Brother Halim stated about the politics, because that's one of the things that we really have been bogged down with for several years with the Highland Park project. And that is in these areas, a lot of, at least in Detroit, I don't know if it's in the other cities, but a lot of the land is owned by city entities or state entities. And it's very political on how you can get access to that land. As Brother Fahim said, ownership is important. So you want to own the land. Even in areas where there were homes and people living in the homes, we found out that those homes were even owned by municipalities, or they were about to be taken because of a loss of tax revenue or that kind of thing. So we negotiate with the city, but I guess the best way I can put it is, in our case, we found out that money speaks. And lack of money definitely doesn't get you very far, you know? So, you know, the good thing about us is that we did have, and we do have the wonderful reputation that the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has given us. That was our strongest card in these negotiations. In fact, we would meet with people and we would be told, oh, I was at the Million Man March, and it was a wonderful experience. And so even though we didn't have the millions of dollars backing us at that time, you know, we were still in the game, you know, and kept in there long enough so that maybe now those millions of dollars are maybe coming. Let's pray you know, that it is coming. As I said, the minister told me that everything that I needed would come to me, and it looks like it may be happening. So the point I'm making is, yes, the political issue is key to moving forward on these kinds of projects, because you need contiguous amounts of land so that you can form this community that you're trying to do. You don't want to be scattered, as I first started in Detroit, scattered all over the place. You want to be in a area where you can, as Brother Halim stated, set your boundaries and you claim that as your area.
Mhm.
And pull your people together so that you now have the political clout from the people, because this is all people. You have the political clout from the people on your side that are benefiting from your increasing their value in their homes and in their neighborhood as well.
I think that's a really good point that you actually made about the cities actually having land set aside. And typically in most major city, the city will own dilapidated lots and dilapidated land. Especially, I can speak for Houston, Tennessee, and other said areas, but they will actually turn around and they'll give those lands out for $1.
Yes.
They'll give it out for $1 to individual builders who have the capability to build a product within a said period of time and turn that product over to a said demographic. So they're looking for people to come back into inner city. They're looking for people who could be marginal and have a marginal income, and they'll provide you with a funnel of individuals who actually have a certain set income, but you have to have a said builder or developer that can come in and say that, hey, these are the plans, these are designs, and I can get this product done within the specified period of time. Some programs in the city of Houston require you to actually have the project completed within a year. It has to be a home that's a starter home. It has to be somewhere in the area between $175,000 to $200,000 or $300,000. And then they'll provide you with the end users who can occupy that said land. But like the brother said, they only provide those specific types of products to entities that have the financial wherewithal to be able to take that project on. They have their own internal financing and build the said products that are actually needed to be rolled out, you know, within that specified period of time. So at the end of the day, they'll design it, they'll build it, and they'll sell it to a first-time home buyer. And the city's happy with it because they look good. In addition to now their tax dollars coming in on those said developments that are actually being established. But if we put ourselves in a situation to where we were going out and focused in on a certain area and said, hey, whatever set asides we actually have, you know, we did some crowdfunding, we have the capability of building these said products, then we can come in and forge and to build those products and have the end users that we want to see in place occupy those said products, whether that's single family or multifamily.
It is absolutely necessary that we pull our resources because, as you mentioned, things that are happening. I know here in Tennessee, there are a lot of investors that are buying up homes. Tennessee is a major rental community. I think it's 54% of the city of Memphis rent. They're renters. And a lot of these rental properties, they've stayed in for 20, 30 years. You know, when you stayed in something for a long time, you think it belongs to you. You forget that it's not yours. And unfortunately, they are, and I'm going to bring this around to the Detroit Mecca project. Unfortunately, there are now in this big housing boom, you have investors coming in offering these as is, you know, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. Well, real estate's not as expensive in Memphis, but offering these cash prices, and then they're renovating these places and they're renting them back out again. So we've had a lot of tenants that have been displaced and given 30 days to move out after they've lived there for 20, 30 years. And of course, they cannot afford the rents. because the rents are double and triple, and they're calling it neighborhood vitalization. That's actually one of the company's name, neighborhood revitalization. And in fact, Dr. Halim, you mentioned it on another program about the Beckys and whatnot that come in for a minute, get a grant, and then they're gone. And so I researched this company, and sure enough, there was Becky, who was the program coordinator, had just moved to Memphis like a year or two ago from Texas. So we're seeing that. So there we go, confirmation. But I want to bring that down because you said in the beginning, Brother Kamal, with the Detroit Mecca project, the affordability because of the vacancies that were there. And then the second part, though, was making it our Mecca, because when I have the vision of Mecca, I think of a beautiful space and an encompassed space that will provide me with what I need. And so you mentioned about, instead of being spread out now, coming to the area. So in that Highland Park area, because we want to move towards being able to direct people to places too. Are there vacancies there? And can we still get into areas like this at a lower cost, or is with this housing market going out? Because we do get calls, we do get requests. People want to know where to go, what to do. And we want to be able to direct people towards something so that we can become that power base.
Well, the good thing about the Detroit area, and I'll say area, is that I look at it spiritually, and I look at it as if Allah leveled the playing field for us. Because instead of the average home, 3-bedroom home being worth, let's say, or the median home value being worth $390,000 or so in the US, maybe $400,000 now, it's, let's say, $40,000 or $50,000 in Detroit. So you're able to buy a house for 1/10 the value of the same home in Houston or Chicago or Atlanta, or, well, let's not even include New York and San Francisco and LA, because they're sky high over there. But yes, the point is that the housing market there is at affordable level now. And if we can do, or I'm not gonna say if, when we do the things that we're planning, we will build homes that will be not only reasonable in price so that you can gain the wealth that you need, or that Black people need in this country, and catch up our assets so that we're on a level playing field now, instead of being 1/10, having 1/10 the assets of the average white family. We catch up by buying a house for 1/10 the value, and that house goes up to, might not even go up to 100%, but if it goes up 50%, you've probably made 5 times your amount on your property. So these are the kinds of things we have to do to increase our wealth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. If I can, when I hear you all discussing, Dr. Halim, you're talking about people being first. Brother Fahim, you're talking about mentioning the same thing. It really highlights for me the capacity that we have with the residential. Us living, as Sister Ava always stresses, living in proximity with one another. And even that giving segue to the business and the economics. As you said, Brother Kamal, the majority of the wealth that's locked up with the Caucasian whites is in home and residential property, owning homes. That's where the vast majority of the wealth of the middle class, the white middle class, is locked up in. And we as Blacks have been blocked out of that because we just simply haven't been homeowners. So I think us taking that step and really highlighting you, Brother Kamal, with starting off, man, just providing for Black people safe, decent, beautiful homes, even if it's just a starter home, because it's all relative. If for me, somebody, I would need, I got 5 children, I would need a big house. So prospectively, a starter home for me could be different from what someone who has one child or no, children looking to start a family, and you have that capacity right there in Detroit, and it opens up the way for business. I think about our great brother Louis Ali from Louisiana with the Black Wall Street Market project that they did down in Georgia, Stonecrest. It was very successful. It got national publicity, and I believe the main reason is because of where they opened up the project was right there in Stonecrest, the largest Black city ever founded in America's history since Reconstruction. And you had a concentration of Black, not only business owners, but you had a concentration of Black people living in that city in Stonecrest that flooded that when the gates opened up. And I think that if we focused on that residential aspect first, like what you're doing, Brother Kamal, then it will open up so many other doors politically, economically, industrially, for us moving forward.
Yes, sir. Well, I have just been blessed to really come up with an idea, and this, with Allah's grace, it's just been able to attract people to help. I mean, I see in attendance here one of our sisters, Sister Virginia Muhammad, who was secretary in Boston, and Boston created a wonderful community and a commercial thoroughfare that, I mean, I don't know how many years ago, maybe, I don't know, 30 years ago or so they were doing that. So, I mean, I'm just tying into and trying to pull people that I know have the ability so that we can do what I know can be done in this area in Detroit. And you're speaking of your house. I mean, we have some huge houses in Detroit, Brother Cardia. I mean, the sister I'm talking about, she was one of my first buyers. She bought a $30,000 home, and we converted it into, I think we sold it to her for about $30,000. So we converted it. So she's got, I think 5 or 6 bedrooms now.
Wow.
And the house is, I know I'm not going to say how much it's worth now, but
she said 6 bedrooms, brother. She held up 6.
6 bedrooms. Okay. See, I don't even remember. I've done so many. I've done over 70 homes in Detroit during this time, but I know she was one of my first, and I thank her forever for that. And yes, there's some big homes, Brother Cartier, and not for very much money.
Yeah.
You're trying to make us, well, I'm trying to get further down south where it's warm, but you're trying to make us move to Detroit.
Don't worry, sis. Allah will make it warm.
Change,
you heard about global warming, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
No, you make that what you make that your summer home.
Summer home.
No, your summer home.
That's right. We're not limited.
Beautiful,
right here,
beautiful in summer.
Because in Texas we have 2 seasons, summer and August. Hot and hotter. So no, but you can go to have that option is what we should have. Multiple properties in different locations. We should have that option. We should know that Islam is everything, sun, moon, and stars. It is the world. And that's why, again, we go back to thinking globally, acting locally, but we plan regionally so that we can encompass all of the assets and benefits that are around us and draw that in. And that's why I thank Allah for the vision of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when he set up our provisional constitution and broke us down into regions. I mean, Allah is God, y'all. All we have to do is take the swan song, apply that part to ourselves that touched us. For me, it was, I cannot live without the truth. That one knocked me, I mean, it hit me right here. Whatever part that was, take it, and then let's all assemble this together in the oneness of Allah, knowing that He is the supreme being, and let's act on this thing and leave something tangible so that we can have proof that we walk the earth. They may speak of us as we, us, and our. They may not remember Kamal, Halim, Fahim, Donna, Cartier, like that, but they'll say them, us, our, and we did so and so, because there's eternity before we are born, eternity after we die, and in between this short thing called a dash. And if we were still in the church, it would say sunrise on your funeral program and sunset.
Sunset. That's
That
right.
dash, but there's eternity before and eternity behind. We might as well go on and get our fight in right now and make sure, because March the 8th ain't a good day for me.
I know you
1971.
said that in the
When Ali
beginning.
lost to Frazier on March the 8th, she said March the 8th, I was like, oh no.
Yeah, that was his response too. He's like, "Oh,
My
you
head
all,
started hurting. But
this has been
we can make it happen.
this has been so fabulous. I cannot believe how fast the time went by. But before we close, we want to bring on Student Minister Ava Muhammad for some remarks. And we're excited because it was through her that Allah gave the vision to move out on the words of the minister when he said he wanted town hall meetings. And when it went from should Blacks consider separation to him intervening and then changing it to no, Blacks must consider separation. So we're here now today on Building Our Promised Land, showing that this is actually happening. So we'll hear from Student Minister Dr. Ava Muhammad, and then we'll come back for you to each give like a minute or two recap, closing words that you'd like to give with us and your information. And we will close out this wonderful program. And I pray that everybody has gotten great benefit from it. So at this time, we would like to bring forward the National Student Spokesperson for the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, Sister Student Minister Dr. Ava Muhammad.
Thank you, Sister Donna, and I apologize for not being on video. I thank you and Brother Cartier for having these visionaries on tonight who are experts in the very fields of endeavor that we need to make the coming of the new kingdom a reality. And I really thank you, Brother Minister Dr. Abdul Halim Muhammad. Minister Farrakhan said, put the minister first, then the doctor. Brother Fahim, who is just fabulous. And of course, my dear brother and colleague and friend, not only a son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, biologically, but spiritually. And I have worked with Brother Halim, worked with Brother Kamal, with the Detroit Mecca Project, more as an observer than anything, and learning myself. And I love that tonight the brothers showed us and helped us see the importance of the circular motion of the right type of activity that is needed to encase us and make a viable community, the cohesiveness. And I think it was Brother Kamal that talked about the power of the people, and everyone addressed, the importance of us being in close proximity. I think we've all learned that lesson over the years in the rebuilding of the Nation of Islam. Someone brought to our attention recently on one of the Elevated Places programs that Bill Gates is now the largest private, well, we know that Bill Gates is now the largest private landowner in the United States. As the depopulation agenda moves from the vaccine into making the majority population renters, as I heard you all talk about, they can't help but do what is in their nature to do. So we're seeing a return to the feudalism of Europe and the monarchy. And of course, that's why the name is landlord, the Lord of the land. And it means we have a really short window within which to pull this together. But one of our callers told us that in 1954, the Black economy was the fastest growing economy in America. And so it's no coincidence that 1954 was the year of Brown versus Board of Education and the so-called desegregation of education and the move toward this fake integration that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad warned us of and begged us not to fall for. But what I'm going to beg for right now is a part 2 of this program at the end of April. so that we can give it the widespread promotion it deserves, along with trying to promote a replay of part one. I am so serious. This is where we are right now. It's either do or die. And this is the type of thinking, the type of vision that has got to be conveyed to our people very quickly. And all of you are able to put things in such language that lay people like me really comprehend it. So with that, I'm turning everything back over to you, Sister Donna, Brother Cartier, but I want to thank my brothers from the bottom of my heart. And I'm so happy to see the viewers on tonight. We're also on YouTube, but I really think, Sister Donna, Brother Cartier, we need a part two of this, of tonight's program, if our brothers are available. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. I'm so in agreement. There is still so much to cover and some nuts and bolts to get into for this. So we want to go ahead and move to closing out so that we can stay on time. We have 4 minutes left in the program. So if you could, just as we're closing out, each of you give us your contact information or how people can reach out to you so that they can become involved in it, and so that they can press you for a part two. Flood their mailboxes, flood their email, whatever they give information, flood that. But if you can each do that and maybe make a closing statement, and we will close out in prayer. Okay, we can start with you, Brother Kamal.
Yes, so I can be reached at www.thedetroitmeccaproject.com. And I just want to thank you and your viewers for the time here. And I'll just end by saying this. Sister Minister Ava, Student Minister Ava, said I was an expert, but I'm not an expert. I remember what the minister told me my father said. If you're stuck in the car, this car breaks down, you don't sit in the car. You get out, you open the hood up, act like you know what you're doing. And guess what? People are going to come help you. That's what I did. That's what I did when I started Detroit Mecca Project. I didn't know what I was doing, but I went out there, bought some houses and acted like I knew what I was doing. And I got all these wonderful minds helping me. So I thank you. I'm looking for more help, more minds, more help, more money. Come to me, help us build this thing together, because I don't have the talent to do it by myself. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Alaikum salam. Brother Fahim, we see that you have put your information in there. It's fw@urbandb.net. That's in our chat room. And
Yes,
your words?
and the website is www.urbandb.net. It's for your design and construction service needs, as well as project management and program management needs as well.
And it's beautiful. You must go on there and see everything that he's been involved in. It is an absolute gorgeous site. And last but definitely not least, Student Minister Halim Muhammad. You're muted, sir.
That figures. Halim at nteplanning.com. Halim, HALEEM at nteplanning.com. And visit www.siliconbayouhouston.com. Might be Texas, but siliconbayouhouston.com. I want you to see in part what it is that we're attempting to do in bringing together the blue collar, green collar, and advanced technology trades. And that's one of our visions. And that's what we want to do in Highland Park and in other places.
We thank you again, everybody. We want to not leave without telling us to visit www.ministerava.com. You can get the updates. You can get the latest news on the master classes, as well as purchase the master classes, purchase her many books that she has put out based on the teachings. And we also invite you to visit www.projectseparation.com, where you can watch all of our previous Building Promised Land presentations, as well as some of the previous town hall meetings, and get involved. You can sign up, you can put your areas of interest, and we want you to support the endeavors. Definitely visit the websites. We've placed everybody's website in the chat area, because we even got a question, Brother Kamal, about how much it would cost to purchase 30 to 50 homes in Project Mecca. So that sounds like the help that you wanted. So now we have to come back for part 2 because you need the answer to that. So we have to come back. So with that, we want to thank everybody. I'd like to thank Student Minister Ava Muhammad for this opportunity. I would like to thank Allah for coming to seek and to save that which was lost in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, and for raising up the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and for leaving us the comforter, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, my co-moderator who's handling some affairs right now, Brother Cartier, and our newest little assistant, Sister Joy Axe out of Florida, our youth member who's on the tech team. So we thank you most of all as well for attending. And so with that, if I could have you, I don't know that Brother Cartier is going to be able to come back on. So Student Minister Halim, would you mind taking us out in prayer, sir?
Yes.
Thank you.
Prayer. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent and Merciful. O Allah, we beseech thy help, we ask thy mercy. For we believe in you, we trust in you for all that we need. We all help us in your cause with your apostle. Please grant to us success. Ameen.
Ameen.
Ameen. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Alaikum salam.
Okay, so we close out. We're leaving out, those that stay for the after party, but we're about to.
May Allah bless you. I got to prepare my radio show for
Yeah,
tomorrow.
we're about to close the program.
May Allah
Assalamu
bless you.
alaikum.
Good to see you. Wa alaikum salam.